All right, I'm joined by my good friend over there today in beautiful sunny Los Angeles, California. How are you doing, Stephanie?
I'm doing good. How's it in Korea?
It's fantastic. Thanks for giving away my location, but I don't think it's any secret. Yeah, I'm enjoying my time right now in Asia.
That's
Uh,
fun. Well, I hope I can come visit sometime.
Honestly speaking, you'd be the seventh wave of people. It's from Product Gym and another course that I'm working with. It's amazing. It's become quite a global destination out here. We
Yeah,
had Kanye West perform 2 weeks ago. I think that was like probably one of the most insane shows that he's ever hosted.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
well, with that said, you have just recently landed your role over there at Disney. How are you enjoying your time over there right now?
I really like it. So I'm working at Disney Experiences. I'm actually at the program manager level on their Jedi team, which effectively is the ruling body or the center of excellence for everything AI at Disney. And I'm really happy to be working here. It's a huge organization, right? So when I first started, it was a bit overwhelming, lots of acronyms and lots of things to learn. But in general, I think the breadth of knowledge that I'm going to get from this role is incredible, and I'm so happy to have this opportunity.
Wonderful, wonderful. What was life like for you before you started working with Product Gym?
Pretty crappy.
Oh,
Um, I'm sure you want to hear that. I did have a little bit of success with, getting interviews at, certain companies like Microsoft and Facebook, but I wasn't able to execute, like I wasn't able to bring it through or like hit the home run, so to say. And I was getting very, very few interviews. Like it was kind of, few and far between. Um, this is probably a good thing to segue to kind of what happened after and kind of what the timeline was. So unfortunately, I got laid off in February of 2024. I worked for an AI startup that had to do some downscaling. So I was one of kind of the first cuts, unfortunately. And, since I did have AI in my resume, I think that was kind of the one thing that helped me get interviews. But I just really struggled with the interview process and like answering questions concisely. But by using Product Gym, there's a lot of different things that I liked about it. And first of all, obviously, was the fact that they helped review my resume, made sure it was, good and clean. Second of all was I know you have tons and tons of YouTube videos and different resources to look at that kind of like show you different tools and methodologies to be able to make your resume better, make sure that you've got the correct use cases that you're talking about. And then the other thing that I really enjoyed was the fact that the community was really, really strong. So there was several people that we kind of had like a little pod or squad that we established, and we have I'm still on it today, still kind of chatting with everybody that's on there. Where we would do mock interviews together. There was another guy that I think is still in Product Gym and still interviewing, but he would send his audio recordings and all of the questions that they asked him at different interviews. People would share frequently where they were interviewing, which would also kind of spur like, hey, I didn't realize that this place had a job open. Maybe I should apply too. And then plus, obviously, Rich, I know you spend a lot of time posting on I don't know if it's daily basis or weekly basis, all these different roles that are out there, as well as have your huge list of or Excel Airtable to what to apply to. So I think it really helped like directionally, also like looking for different things, how to search for things, having that group, and then obviously those resources. So I think it definitely did help me a lot.
I think it's like the positive affirmation and positive reinforcement, I think is so powerful because when you're doing something for a prolonged period of time and you don't necessarily see results immediately,
Mhm.
I think it's very hard for you to think about whether or not you're going to stick with the current game plan or like should you go ahead and pivot or if you're going to pivot too soon. But when you're
Yep.
seeing like other people get like success, I think we've done We had another guy in LA, Jackie, who got the Hulu offer for streaming. And you're at Disney, and you're like able to go out there and see other people land jobs at different companies, and then you realize like, okay, I don't necessarily need to have this background to apply for these roles.
Yeah.
I think that's like really good positive reinforcement versus like you're constantly when you're doing it by yourself, you're thinking what's wrong with you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think right kind of before I reached out to you, I applied for this job and I was like, I'm for sure gonna get this. I was a perfect match. It was a lot like the last company. The salary was, to make you drool over kind of salary. So I was like, betting really hard that I was gonna get this. And the recruiter that I worked with at that company too was like, yeah, you're perfect for this role. You're perfect. When they rejected me, I was bawling. Like I don't know what came over me, but the job market and like getting all those rejections, I think really messes with your head, so to say. And I don't even know why, but I just started crying and I was in a horrible mood. And I was like, okay, I think I need to call Product Gym now. And that's kind of one of the things that I think was really helpful in being on the coaching calls, like with Dennis and you, as well as that community of people that I mentioned to you before. Everyone's like, oh, well, they're just idiots, everyone kind of like pumps you up and is like, hey, it's okay. It happened to me too, like multiple times. So it's kind of like, not only it's like a support group or like a therapy, like it's a therapy session, because a lot of us have repeated sort of things that are happening to us, like, oh, I got ghosted. Did you get ghosted too? Yeah, I got ghosted. So I think that's kind of one of the best things, right? Is like it's like a almost like a therapy session, so to say. And that kind of helped my positivity and not getting so down about all these rejections.
100%. I mean, it's kind of sad how dehumanizing the whole process has become because it's so automated now. You're trying to stay positive and applying out there, and like, unfortunately, the best conversion rate is still 7 to 10%.
Yeah.
10% is considered outlier right now. So you're still getting like 89, like 80, 90% rejection rate plus, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Um, okay, how many interviews were you averaging when you were working with us a week?
So it changed. So at first, I would say maybe it was like one to two per week. So when I first started applying, I was like much more picky, right? I was like, it has to be a AI, it has to be over $200,000 a year. Then at a certain point, I think I was maybe like 4 or 5 months in, I was like, I don't care anymore. Like I'm just gonna apply to everything. Um, and that's where I took Dennis's and a few of the other people's advice on using like an assistant to help, just batch out all of these applications. So I think one day I was like, I'm just going to sit at my computer and I'm going to crank out 60 on Monday. And at that point in time, and I kept doing it, I was overwhelmed with the amount of interviews that I had. I think for a few weeks, I was running one at least like I prefer to have one per day, honestly, because you have to do a lot of context switching and do your research. But some days I was averaging 2 to 3. So I think one week the top was maybe about 12 interviews. And that was where like by the end of the week I was like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. So it really fluctuated. And I think it's, all about input to output, kind of like you're mentioning, and you've said in a lot of the coaching calls, you got to get all those applications in, and it did work, but it is exhausting. So
Oh gosh, I don't envy it. So that's why
not fun. I kind of was joking to myself. It's like, I don't want to talk about myself anymore. Like it's exhausting. I'm not that self-absorbed to be able to want to talk about how wonderful I am all the time.
Oh man. Okay. So like and output wise, how many offers did you end up receiving on the back end?
I have two. No, actually, yes, two. Then I'm still waiting on two other companies, but I joined Disney, and unless someone's gonna make a great offer somewhere else, I'm here to stay.
Manifest it. Uh okay. And then so I mean overall, would you recommend Product Gym to anybody else that's struggling right now?
Yes, I definitely would, and I do have some friends that are in the product space that have gotten laid off. So I've mentioned it to them. I think it's just like a really great place when you feel very alone and you need some more assistance and moral support and all those sort of things. So yes, I would.
Oh man. And I think how different right now is it going from product to program? I mean, do you feel like the disparity is like that high, like in terms of like product versus product program management?
Not really. I mean, I think that there's a lot of similar, I mean, I guess it probably depends where you are and what team and things like that, but it's pretty similar, but it's tracking at more of a high level. Um, the one thing that I do miss is kind of, I mean, I do interact with like, all of the head architects and um, some developers and stuff, but you're not necessarily participating in Scrum activities on a daily basis or sprints or anything like that, but it's much more at a high level, like, creating the business objectives at a high level and tracking. Like right now, I'm working on a project to bring something to commercialization that's going to be launching soon. So that's really exciting. So it's very similar, but it's a little bit different. I don't know if that answers the question, but the funny thing is before I had this role, all of my product experience, so I have like 9 years of product experience. I was like, what the heck does a program manager do? Like I've heard that they exist, but I never worked with one before. But at these bigger organizations, obviously it's a thing. So yeah, it's been, and I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
You are.
it's similar, but you do have like having the product knowledge actually really helps a lot. So when I'm triaging use cases or working with product departments or developers, like I can speak the language and we're able to like get through this more effectively. So I think if anything, it helps.
Yeah, I think like looking at this from like a product management sense, like if product managers were looking at themselves as a product,
Mhm.
I think one of the big problems and why people need to do this in the community is to be able to open up their mindset more about what's possible to them. Like almost like pivoting from like Uber to like Uber Eats, right? Because when you're part of the reason why product managers are so picky about the roles that they're going after is because they're feeling like I can only go after roles that I'm qualified for. And going for roles that you're qualified for is, I think, really subjective in terms of what you believe that you are qualified for. And I think that's a very limiting mindset. There was a time when we thought like, well, our methodology would only be applicable in the US. And then I was thinking to myself, well, US sets the bar for product management. So why wouldn't we be able to compete with UK and like Canada, right? That's kind of the thing. When people are seeing less roles that are available out there, I think people really start thinking about like what other roles within, like else can I leverage these product management skills? And everybody else that we've also gotten into program roles kind of said the same thing. It's like it's different, but there's just so much
Similar.
overlap that like you don't really care. I think especially when you're getting to the point where you need a role. And I
Mhm.
mean, program management compared to product management, compensation wise, I mean, would you say it's comparable or like exceeded expectations?
I think, I guess it depends where you go. It's it's good. I mean, yeah, it's very case dependent, I think. But yeah, it's similar more or less. As like certain companies, obviously, like the Microsofts and Facebooks and stuff pay the highest. So if you're at a big company, then and you're looking for a product to program, it's comparable.
Or are you happy with the compensation that you ended up with?
Yes, it's good.
Wonderful. Well, I know your work is extremely exhausting.
I
So
am
I'm gonna let,
It's almost 5 o'clock here, so
yeah, I'm gonna let you get on with the rest of your day. Thank you so much for
sure.
taking time out of your schedule to go ahead and do this call. It's gonna inspire, your story is definitely gonna inspire a lot of people. I know it's already inspired a lot of people within the community when they found out that you landed the offer, and it wasn't that long ago when you were on the other side thinking, is this job hunt ever going to end? So,
And I'm so happy it did. Well, I mean, it's still going. It never ends, right? But it's nice to actually feel some sense of stability. And you know, now that I am getting people reaching out on LinkedIn and stuff, I'm like, hey, I'm not interested unless, like it's like unless it meets this criteria, unless it pays this much, unless it's this much better. So that's kind of awesome to be in that position after, feeling like I was desperate for a while. Unfortunately, it's tough to say that I was desperate, but I was feeling desperate.
how long did the whole process last for you, like from beginning to end?
So 6 months.
And what about the process, like working with us? Was it a 6 month period? Working with
No,
us?
we didn't do six. We were more like maybe like 4.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mentioned to you before, I got to the final rounds with Microsoft. And one of my biggest struggles is, I know that you know this, Rich, but your listeners don't know this, is that in my last role, I was a senior director of product. And um, it's tough when you're at a higher level, I guess, because some people look at you and they say, oh, she's overqualified. And when I interviewed at Microsoft, actually, I ended up becoming friends with the hiring manager. And she said, I didn't give you the job because you were overqualified and you should be able to do my job. So it's kind of like this weird, like, limbo land that I was in, because I was very qualified, but then some people wanted me to be, well, I didn't have finance. Like, you're more of like, you've done more healthcare, you've done more of this, you didn't do this, so you can't work here as a director. So it's kind of like it was a typecasting as kind of the thing. But then when you're at the higher levels, I would get a lot of rejections for lower level roles because they're like, well, you're too qualified. And it's like, well, I can do the job. Like, if I'm applying, then why don't you just interview me? You know what I mean? So um it's a weird place. So let's just say that.
This market's crazy because there is that other challenge of being overqualified, right? And unfortunately, sometimes people get to the point where it's just like they need to just get work. I think one
Yeah.
hand financially, I think on the other hand, it's just having something to do.
Yes.
Probably try
Because
to
you're
figure out.
just applying all day long
Right, right,
stinks. You're
right,
like, I can't look at an application anymore.
right, 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 right,
Exactly. And then
right,
also, like, this, like, the skills, like, you want to sharpen your skills, and like not doing it for so many months, you're like, what am I doing? Or like, has the market changed since I last worked?
right, right. Oh, well, I'm so glad you're out. Literally, I feel like it's been hosting these calls every single week and trying to get people to the finish line is like this market has been. I mean, when I was working in tech recruiting in like LA like 10 years ago, this is the craziest market that I've ever seen.
I don't remember it being this hard
Yeah.
before. It's like, yeah, yep, you could get this director role, like, no problem. Or like, you want to be a product analyst? Sure. Like, we don't care if you don't have any experience. So it's definitely much different for sure. And the level of questions is insane. I had this one interview and this lady was asking me about like some like really deep information about the company, and I was like, I don't even know if I should like, even I didn't even know that information, but it's like, even if I had that knowledge, I don't think I could provide it to you. You know what I mean? And she was going back like 7 years. So I was like, okay, this is a little much. Like, look at my resume. Like, I'm a cool person and I've got a great resume. Like, it shouldn't be that hard, right? But it is.
Yep, 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 yep. I know it. I know it. Okay, I'm gonna let you get on with the rest of your day. Thank you so much for taking time out of your
Thank you.
schedule to talk to us. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Nice to see you.